Humiliation doesn't arrive the way you expect. It doesn't storm in or announce itself. It slips in quietly, dressed up in perfume and polite smiles. It looks like a celebration. It sounds like laughter. And when it lands, it cuts like glass. That's how it happened to me. Under warm golden chandeliers, beside a towering wedding cake, surrounded by people who were supposed to love me, my sister Lydia turned me into a spectacle. She didn't just hint that I was this sad single one. She made it the theme of the night. A quiet joke woven into every introduction, every glance, every carefully staged moment. But what she didn't realize was this. That night, under those same soft lights, I learned something important. Revenge doesn't always look like anger. Sometimes it looks like grace. Sometimes it looks like romance. The whole wedding felt like it belonged in a magazine. Crystal chandeliers hung overhead like frozen stars. Violins played softly in the background, the kind of music that almost convinces you everything is perfect. Champagne glasses clinked. Gold and white shimmered across every table. And in the middle of all that beauty, I held a small piece of cardboard that said everything I needed to know. Table 12. Singles. Tucked near the kitchen doors. Hidden behind a pillar. Close enough to hear the clatter of dishes and the hiss of steam. The reject table. I didn't need to see Lydia's face to know she was smiling somewhere. I'm Hannah. And if my last name feels unimportant, it's because it always has been. Especially when Lydia is around. She has a way of dimming everyone else just enough to make herself shine brighter. Ever since she got engaged to Richard, she turned my life into a running commentary. Family dinners became her stage. She'd twist her diamond ring just enough to catch the light and sigh dramatically. Maybe you should try dating apps again, Hannah. You can't be picky forever. Time's ticking. Our mother would nod along like this was helpful advice, not a public takedown. Our father would suddenly find something very interesting on his plate. Me. I smiled so tightly my jaw hurt. The morning of the wedding, Lydia called. Her voice was soft, sweet, carefully rehearsed. Hannah, I know today might be hard for you. Seeing everyone so happily paired up. Pause. Then the real message slipped through. Just promise me you won't spend the night flirting with the bartender again, okay? That's when I knew. This wasn't going to be a celebration. It was going to be a performance. And I was the punchline. By the time I arrived at the Grandview Manor, everything sparkled with perfection. My dress, deep navy, sharp and elegant, felt like armor. But armor doesn't help when the attack has already been planned. Marian, Lydia's maid of honor, greeted me with a clipboard and a brittle smile. Oh Hannah, there you are. Table 12. Right this way. She said it casually. But that number landed hard. The table was exactly where I expected it to be. Hidden. Peripheral. Forgettable. A few of Lydia's single co-workers sat there, whispering to each other in low-coded office gossip. And then there was Great Aunt Janet, 74 and completely unfiltered. She spent most of the evening loudly asking why I wasn't married yet and suggesting I lower my standards. I nodded, smiled, answered politely, like someone watching herself from the outside, waiting for it to be over. Then Lydia came for me. She slipped her arm through mine mid-conversation, her grip light but controlling, and steered me across the room toward a group of Richard's relatives, polished, elegant, the kind of people who measured worth in subtle ways. Everyone, she said brightly, this is my sister Hannah. A beat. She's still figuring things out. There was. Wrapped in charm. Delivered with a smile. Humiliation, dressed as introduction. And in that moment, standing under those chandeliers, surrounded by soft music and softer cruelty, something inside me shifted. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just, quietly. Because for the first time all night I stopped shrinking. And started paying attention. Because if Lydia thought this was my role, she had no idea how the story was about to change. And this is my sister Hannah, Lydia said brightly, curving herself around Richard like I was just another decoration in her perfect scene. She's our hard-working career woman, still focused on her job instead of finding someone special. My throat tightened as the group gave those polite, practiced nods. Richard's aunt smiled at me the way people smile at something unfortunate but harmless. Oh dear, she said softly, patting my arm. Don't lose hope. My nephew met his wife at a prayer group. Lydia laughed, sharp, deliberate. Hannah's very independent, she added, stretching the word until it sounded like a diagnosis. I just haven't met the right person yet, I said. My voice came out steady. Too steady. Richard's mother chimed in light and breezy. Well, dear, don't wait too long. My daughter did, and now she's 45 with fertility problems. A wave of sympathetic murmurs followed. Every word was wrapped in kindness, but it still landed like a sting. By the time the photographer asked if I had a +1 for the family photo, I could already taste the bitterness rising in my throat. It felt like being cut with something polished, something that looked beautiful while it hurt you. The final blow came during the bouquet toss. When the DJ called all the single women forward, I tried to stay out of sight behind a pillar. That didn't last long. Marion spotted me immediately, her smile too sharp to be friendly. Come on, Hannah, she called. Maybe your luck changes tonight. Before I could refuse, I was pushed into a circle of laughing 20-somethings, all excitement and expectation. Lydia caught my eye. She paused just long enough for everyone to notice. Then she turned and tossed the bouquet in the opposite direction. A blonde woman named Chloe caught it. Lydia clapped dramatically. Looks like Hannah will be waiting a little longer. Laughter rippled through the room. Some people glanced at me with that familiar mix of pity and relief, grateful it wasn't them. My face burned. I slipped away back to table 12, my heart beat louder than the music. For a moment I thought about leaving. Just walking out before Lydia could savor it any longer. I reached for my purse. Act like you're with me. The voice was low, close, unexpected. I turned. A man stood beside me, someone I hadn't noticed before. Tall, easily over 6 feet, with a charcoal suit that fit like it had been made for him. Sharp features but softened by calm, steady eyes. The kind of presence that made everything else go quiet. Excuse me, I said. He gave a small, knowing smile. Your sister just spent 10 minutes telling my colleague how worried she is that you'll die alone. I blinked. I figured I'd even things out a little. Without waiting for permission, he slid into the seat beside me. Hope you don't mind. For the first time all night, I didn't feel like shrinking. Across the room, Lydia was still talking, gesturing, completely unaware. You don't mind a little pretending, do you? He asked, his tone casual but his eyes serious. I shook my head before I could overthink it. Pretending sounded perfect. I'm William, he said, offering his hand. Richard's cousin. The black sheep of the family. And you must be Hannah, the tragic story of the evening. A laugh slipped out of me, surprising even myself. That obvious? Only if you're paying attention, he said lightly. Then with effortless ease he leaned closer, his arm resting along the back of my chair, his shoulder brushing mine like it belonged there. Almost instantly I felt it. The shift. Heads turning. Conversations faltering. Attention redirecting. Across the room Lydia froze mid-sentence. Her smile flickered. Then disappeared. She excused herself and started toward us, her expression tightening, her dress trailing behind her like a warning. Hannah, she said when she reached us, her voice just slightly higher than before. I didn't realize you knew William. Old friends, William answered smoothly before I could speak. His hand settled lightly over mine. We lost touch for a while. Life happens. For a second I almost believed him myself. Lydia's expression sharpened. Really? Hannah never mentioned you. I like to keep my private life private, I said, finally finding my voice and something steadier beneath it. You know, balance. The irony wasn't lost on me. Lydia forced a smile. Of course. How long have you two been reconnecting? Long enough, William replied, his tone calm, unreadable. That was all. No details. No explanation. Just enough to unsettle her. Lydia hesitated, clearly unsatisfied, then turned and walked away, her composure just slightly cracked. William leaned closer, lowering his voice. She looks like she just bit into a lemon. I smiled despite myself. She's not used to not knowing everything about my life, I said. Or not being the center of it. Good, he said softly. Let's keep it that way. For the next hour he played the part flawlessly. He brought me drinks. Laughed easily. Let his hand brush mine just enough to make it believable. But more than that. He listened. Really listened. He asked about my work, my hobbies, the places I'd been. And for the first time that night I wasn't the single sister. I wasn't the joke. I was just me. And somehow that mattered more than anything else in the room. "You're not what I expected," he said during a quiet pause between songs. "What did you expect?" I asked. He didn't hesitate. "Based on your sister's running commentary? Someone desperate. Maybe a little lost." I raised an eyebrow. "Instead," he added, softer now, "I'm sitting with someone smart, funny, and honestly I don't understand why you're single." "Because I have standards," I said before I could stop myself. He laughed, real, warm, effortless, and something in my chest loosened for the first time all night. "Good," he said. "Keep them." By then Lydia wasn't even pretending not to watch anymore. She stood across the room whispering to Marion, both of them glancing over with poorly hidden curiosity. The same relatives who had been offering me pity minutes ago were now studying William, his confidence, his ease, and then looking back at me like I'd suddenly become a mystery worth solving. The shift was undeniable. And I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel good. But William wasn't finished. When the band shifted into a slow song, he stood and held out his hand. "Dance with me." Not a question. On the dance floor, his hand settled at my waist, steady and warm. Mine rested on his shoulder, and as we moved, I could feel the weight of every gaze that had judged me earlier. But this time it didn't feel like exposure. It felt like protection. He moved easily, like he'd done this 100 times before, and being close to him felt natural. Effortless. "Your sister is watching," he murmured. "I know," I said, glancing past his shoulder. "She looks like she might combust." "Good," he replied lightly. "That means we're doing it right." I almost laughed. And then, "Mind if I cut in?" Lydia appeared beside us, Richard just behind her. Her smile was still there, but it was stretched too tight, like it might crack if she held it any longer. "Actually," William said calmly, "yes. We're in the middle of something." The words were polite. The message wasn't. Lydia blinked, caught off guard. "Of course," she recovered quickly. "I just wanted to say how happy I am Hannah finally found someone. We were all so worried." "Were you?" William asked. His tone didn't rise, but something in it sharpened. "Because from what I've seen tonight, it looks less like concern and more like performance." For a second Lydia had nothing. Richard shifted beside her, clearly uncomfortable, glancing between us like he'd walked into a conversation he didn't understand. "We just want what's best for her," Lydia said finally, her voice thinner now. "Then maybe start by treating her with respect," William replied. "Not turning her personal life into entertainment." Silence. Real heavy silence. I had never seen Lydia look like that. Off balance, searching for control that wasn't there. "I don't know what Hannah told you." "She didn't have to tell me anything," he cut in, still calm. "I can see it." Richard cleared his throat. "Maybe we should let them get back to dancing." Lydia didn't argue. She couldn't. As they walked away, I watched her lean toward Marion, whispering quickly, urgently, trying to figure him out, trying to regain control of a narrative that had slipped out of her hands. "That felt," I exhaled, searching for the word. "Good." "We're not done yet," William said, a quiet smile playing at his lips. For the rest of the night he stayed beside me. When dinner was announced, he spoke quietly to one of the staff, something about needing a different table. Within minutes we were moved, front and center. No more hiding behind pillars. No more table 12. Now everyone could see us. And they did. The same people who had ignored me earlier suddenly wanted to talk. Lydia's friends drifted over, curious. Richard's relatives, who had looked at me with sympathy, now treated me with interest, respect even. Mrs. Wellington returned, her tone completely different. "Hannah," she said, smiling brightly, "you never mentioned you were seeing someone so accomplished." I almost laughed. But I didn't correct her. Not yet. The final twist came during the garter toss. As Richard prepared to throw it, William stepped forward without hesitation, like he belonged there. "Wait," Lydia called out quickly, her composure cracking again. "William, you're not single." He glanced at me, then back at her, something unreadable in his expression. "Actually," he said smoothly, "I am. Hannah and I are just taking things slowly." The room leaned in. Richard tossed the garter. And somehow, whether by luck or intention, it landed right in William's hands. A ripple moved through the crowd. Because everyone knew what came next. Tradition said he was supposed to place it on the leg of the woman who caught the bouquet. But Chloe, the one who had caught it, had already left. The DJ's voice cut through the moment. "Looks like we need a volunteer." All eyes turned. William looked at me. Not pushing. Not assuming. Just asking. Silently. The crowd erupted as I gave a small nod and sat down, my pulse racing. William lowered himself in front of me, steady and composed, and slid the garter onto my leg with a care that didn't feel like part of an act at all. For a moment, everything slowed. The music, the chatter, even my thoughts. What had started as pretend suddenly felt real. Across the room, Lydia watched, her smile frozen, her eyes sharp with something she couldn't quite hide. The attention she had carefully redirected all night had found its way back to me. And this time it wasn't pity. It was admiration. By the time the reception began to wind down, William stayed close, never once breaking the illusion. When we finally stepped out into the quiet of the parking lot, away from the noise and the performance, the night felt different. Honest, almost. "Thank you," I said, exhaling for what felt like the first time all evening. "I know tonight was staged. But you really saved me." He studied me for a moment, his expression shifting. "What makes you think it was just an act?" I blinked, caught off guard. "Because you don't even know me." "I know enough," he said softly, stepping closer. "I know you handled tonight with more grace than anyone deserved. I know you didn't shrink even when they tried to make you. And I know your sister has no idea what she takes for granted." My chest tightened, but not in the same painful way as before. This felt different. "This may have started as a favor," he continued, "but somewhere along the way it stopped feeling like one." He handed me a card, his number written neatly on the back. "If you want to see me again," he said, "not for appearances, not to prove anything, just because you want to, I'd like that." I looked down at the card, then back at him. "What if I don't wait?" A slow smile spread across his face. "Then I'll pick up." What happened after that didn't feel like revenge. Felt like something better. Months later we were still talking. Still laughing. Still choosing each other without any audience watching. And a year after that wedding, the night that was supposed to humiliate me, William proposed. Not in front of a crowd. Not to prove a point. Just us. Lydia's reaction was complicated. The same sister who once reduced me to a cautionary tale now had to stand beside me, watching a life unfold that she never expected for me. But by then it didn't matter. Because the truth was, the real victory wasn't in proving her wrong. It was in no longer needing her to be wrong at all. Our wedding was smaller, quieter, filled with people who actually saw us. Not as roles, not as comparisons, just as we were. Lydia gave a speech, polished and glowing, rewriting history in a way only she could. But I didn't correct her. I didn't need to. Because I had already learned the only thing that mattered. The worst night of my life didn't break me. It introduced me to a life where I no longer had to shrink to be loved.